going on, guys? Bflattened here with a brand new build video. This time we're going to be focusing on Amara and her 4th skill tree using the ball in order to get as much damage off as possible. Let's go ahead and go right into the skill trees, the gear, and then just how exactly to use this build. So we're going to start off in the red tree. Steady hands is going to be very important for this build for the weapon handling and accuracy. It's going to make it so that your reticle is going to be far smaller, and we're going to be using that on one of our weapons so that we can have all of our shots hit. Infusion and anima is just to move down the tree. You don't really need it on this build, but we can't put any more points into steady hands, so we move down the tree. Tempest is going to be pretty important. The elemental damage and shock damage is going to be further increased. We can have that apply to our ball, and that's going to be very necessary for what we're going to be doing with it. 1 to Illuminated Fist. However, our class mod has given us 3 more points to Illuminated Fist for 300% melee damage. This is absolutely nuts of a skill. In the green tree, we don't take a lot in green tree either. Root to Rise is just to move down the skill tree because personal space doesn't work with what we're doing, and Clarity with regen of HP isn't really that good on Mayhem 10, Mayhem 11. So Root to Rise is just going to be just generally a better skill to use to move down the tree. Arms Deal. Now this one's going to be super important with our purple tree, and we're going to be getting there right away. The splash damage is going to be super duper important for what we're doing with this build. Find Your Center is going to be giving us increased melee damage and melee range for the duration of 20 seconds. It is very, very good. We have a class mod that can boost it again by another 1 point for 200% melee. You can swap back between the Muse and the Breaker pretty easily, and both of them work out pretty well. And now into our purple tree. So trust in yourself. Whenever your shield breaks, you get reload speed, charge speed, and weapon speed. The only thing that's really important here is the reload speed, so that you can reload your main weapon faster. The more that you're shooting it, the more damage that you're doing, and the more that you're actually going to be healing yourself as well. No mistakes in nature. Whenever you inflict a status effect, you gain increased melee damage for a short time. You max this out because our ball is going to be applying status effects all the time, and since we have infusion, our weapons are going to be inflicting status effects as well. Heavy Rain, this is here for the splash damage. Super important for the splash damage on this, along with Arms Deal. You'll see why very shortly. Unweave the Rainbow is just to move down the tree. You do bonus damage of your attuned element whenever you do melee or splash damage to frozen targets. We're constantly doing splash and melee damage, so this could actually work out very well. Especially when we're using Cold Hearted as our action skill to cryo damage. It is very, very nice. It does work whenever you have this on, and that extra damage is really, really good. Combo Breaker, killing an enemy with a melee attack has a chance to reset your cooldown. This is just stupidly and utterly broken. Our cooldown is already low enough as it is, but we can actually reset it as a, you know, a 1 in 4th chance, or a 1 in 5 chance. Sorry, it's pretty good. Joyful Freedom, after activating your action skill, you get a 70% melee damage for 12 seconds. It's very nice. You throw your ball out, you get 12 seconds of 70% melee. You can definitely abuse that and kill a bunch of enemies with it. Now, Burn Both Ends. I was thinking about doing this, but it's actually a really, really good skill the more that I think about it. After activating your action skill, you gain increased threat for a short time, drawing the attention of all enemies in a huge radius. Whenever Amara is dealt damage by an enemy, she gains increased damage for a short time as a stacking skill for 8 seconds. 15 stacks for 5% damage. It's really nice because whenever you recall your ball back, if that ball is going to be sweeping and passing through an enemy, it does all that damage with the ball to them. Because we're using Shooting Star, it increases the overall damage of it, and it also continually fires elemental projectors at the last enemy that we damage. So if we damage an enemy that we have threatened, and we just recall our ball, the Shooting Star will end up shooting at those enemies, and also it passing through enemies will cause damage to them as well. I also use Expedite. Whenever Amara kills an enemy with her action skill, she gains increased action skill cooldown rate until she activates her action skill again per enemy killed. So if you're not resetting it, you're just getting it back very, very quickly. Both of these will work hand in hand, and as well as our blue tree as well. Body and Mind. Now this skill is where all of our splash damage is going to be coming from Heavy Rain and from Arms Deal. Body and Mind is going to be applying all of this together. Chill Still, Amara's melee attacks deal bonus splash damage for a short time. We're going to be revisiting this in just a second, so hold this in your body and mind. Clear the mind. Chill Still, after killing an enemy, Amara ignores enemy's elemental damage resistance for a short time. It does not affect elemental immunity. So say we have a shock ball, and we throw it at a corrosive enemy. We ignore elemental damage resistances completely. It just becomes neutral, nullified. There is no such thing as resistances. It's just gone. If they are immune to the element, that does not matter. It just negates that completely still. They're immune. But if they resist it, we ignore that completely. Completely broken skill. Here we have fast hands with reload speed. It's also nice with our purple tree still. Trust in yourself if our shield is not breaking. We just have passive reload speed. Do harm and violent tapestries to move down the tree, but at the same time we can also get stacks off of it, so that's pretty nice. And restless, we have action skill cooldown rate as well, on top of expedite, on top of combo breaker to reset our action skill. We get it back very, very quickly. And if you decide to use the Muse comm on this build, you also get 2 points of delayed bear. Enemies take increased damage from all sources for a few seconds after being damaged by Amara's action skill. Say you're damaging a boss, because we're going to be one-shotting most mobs. Say you damage a boss after activating your action skill. You just get 16% bonus damage for 8 seconds on that boss, just because. Why not? So that's going to do it for the skill trees. Let's just get right into the build. Weapons, we don't really need a lot. We just need weapons in our hand for 390s. The face puncher is going to be a shooting melee weapon. Now remember body in mind, we said we were going to revisit it. So this is a 14 times 390 face puncher. 14 pellets is 14 different melee attacks, right? So because we're doing 14 different melee attacks, after killing an enemy, all of our melee attacks deal bonus splash damage for a short time. So 14 pellets is 14 splashes that are going to be centered on the target that we shoot. And because we have a steady hands here with weapon handling and accuracy, we have our reticle that's going to be even smaller, so those 14 pellets are going to be even easier to hit. And they're all going to be centered on that target of whatever your attuned action skill is. That is nuts, that is crazy, and it hits hard. With it getting boosted by all our splash damage skills, it is very, very good. We're using a Stinger Shield. While full, melee damage is increased by 50%, and if you get hit by it, it returns 10,000 damage to the enemy for shock damage. We have Tempest, so our shock damage is going to be even higher. It's nice. Action skill start, you get 50% melee damage. It's nice. If you wanted to do a level 1 Brawler's Ward with action skill and melee damage, I did test it out a little bit. It's not as good as the Stinger, but it is very, very nice if you want constant procs of trusting yourself for reload speed. Very nice little combination there that you can have. And we have a Fish Slap. This is just here for action skill and radiation and melee. If you want a thrown melee attack so that you can heal, it's nice. We talked about the Muse comm earlier. Action skill cooldown rate, melee damage, action skill damage, 3-2 split. It is amazing for this build. But if you want to, you can also use a breaker comm with splash damage, radius, and splash damage, and 1 point into find your center for that extra 100% melee damage. The splash damage, radius, and splash damage is going to be working with arms deal and body in mind, and also heavy rain as well. So this is also a really good option. I tested both. It's really hard to tell the difference between the two. However, the Muse comm is going to be sending out that melee projectile that activates whenever you do a melee attack to someone. I have tested it after several hours of determining if it works to the splashes and all, because it's really hard to see. It does actually proc, which is nice. Even if the splash damage is going to be the one doing the procking, it does actually work. And finally, a knife drain static charge, action skill cooldown rate, shock damage, melee damage. So whenever we do a melee attack, a static charge of shock will be traveling throughout the mobs of enemies. And whenever we do a melee attack, we do knife drain, which is going to be healing us. So if our shield goes down, we have constant procs of healing. We have faster reload speed, and because of that, the more that we're shooting, the more that we're healing. It is excellent, it is good, it works really, really well. One thing I should also point out is we are also using shield reboot. Killing an enemy triggers shield regeneration. we want to enable this perk because shield reboot is going to trigger your shield regeneration whenever you kill an enemy. And since we're killing enemies and mobs very, very quickly, we want this Stinger shield to be as full as possible at all given times because we get 50% bonus melee damage on it. I think that's really about all with the build. Let's see what we can do with it. Now, one thing to do and keep in mind with Ball, when you activate it, you're gonna one-shot enemies with it. That's not the thing to warn about. Activating your action skill button, whatever it is again, will recall the ball to you, so you can punch it again and hit another enemy. Flying enemies, it will home in on those. And if you want to recall your ball, you have to have a straight path. The ball can get stuck on a lot of different objects, and if it gets stuck on anything, it won't come to you. It'll just stay there. You got to keep in mind that the hitbox of the ball is not the physical ball itself. It's the surrounding like orb of it all. So it's actually a little bit bigger of a hitbox when you're going to be recalling it. So if I try to recall it here, it's not going to come to me. Yeah, it actually came to me there. And it's actually sailed over that wall. Wow, that never happens. This might be world first. Okay, so general mobbing, we have this covered. Ball comes to you, you can one-shot enemies with it. These little death skulls, yeah, we don't really care about those either. You can one-shot the death skulls, you can have the ball one-shot them too. Doesn't really matter. You run them over. Now you see like these little nukes that are coming here? That's body and mind proccing 14 different shock splashes on centered around the target. If your melee attack doesn't one-shot them, your body and mind will finish the job with no problem whatsoever. That thing, one-shot. It's as simple as one-shots. You have little ratchlings that were there and lined up together like that. You can just one-shot everything there too. You can see our static charge proc in there. We'll chain to him and it kills him off. Does not matter. If an enemy decides they want to break their shield, your Stinger will activate and cause that melee Nova, and it'll basically one-shot anything that decides it wants to break your shield for some reason. That thing is dead. Now with Ball is gonna one-shot pretty much every boss that you encounter and come across. If you saw the intro to this video, you would see that our friend Kraken here didn't have a good time during the intro. He got completely and utterly one-shot. Now we're using shock this entire time. We're going against enemies that are having armor balls. Or armor bars. Armored barred enemies, we have clear the mind. So we completely ignore the resistance to what we're doing to them. If they decide to have a shield, okay, it's super effective against them. It's perfect. You gotta make sure that whenever you're activating your action skill, you gotta watch out for barrels. Those things will kill you. Okay. So let's bring our ball in here. We one-shot that thing. And I messed up the one-shot. What do you know? Why couldn't this just be like the intro? Oh well, we'll get him here. There it is. Cracking one shot. You don't have to get super fancy with it, so long as you hit the ball in the direction of your target. It's gonna definitely do enough damage to one-shot anything you damn well please. I'll give you a little bit of a display on Valkyries here, because you too can also one-shot them. Shock to their armor, which is supposed to be a resistance. Just to show off how overpowered Clear the Mind is. I don't have Body and Mind activated, otherwise that would have completely shredded their shields. Okay, now that we have Body Mind active, let's have fun with all these guys. And Sigdrifa's coming down. Look at that, Sigdrifa lost shields, Sigdrifa loses all of her armor. That's exactly what we wanted. We call ball back, all of those guys died just for being in the vicinity of the ball. You hit that thing, shield is gone, shoot it, shock damage on splash, gone. Delete, delete, delete. Now we have this big guy. Now, one thing to remember, your ball, when you first throw it at an enemy, the first hit isn't gonna do anything to the target. The damage of the ball comes from you punching it. You sending the ball towards an enemy, you have to put damage into the ball for the ball to do damage. Is essentially how it works. Now, if you do too much damage to the ball is gonna break. You usually have about 3 comfortable hits on the ball to melee before it breaks. Okay, and that thing's dead. And that one's dead. And now we have Sigdrifa up there. And Sigdrifa's dead. I didn't have to aim the ball over to Sigdrifa there. Since Sigdrifa was the only target that was there, the ball is just automatically going to home in on the target and it's going to hit it. That is that portion of it. You don't actually have to aim the ball, it just has to be in their direction somewhere along the lines. One thing to keep in mind about this build before we end it off, a lot of the interactions change based on the artifact that you're using. There's a bunch of different melee artifacts in here. Corrosive stones, different types of stones. There's a radiation stone static charge in here as well. Radiation stone white elephant with area of effect damage. This thing is really cool to play with. It was a good find. Cut purse white elephant so you can get your shotgun ammo back for your face puncher, and so you can also plant stickies. Radiation stone elephants, bunch of different ones to play around with. This is all going to go on the build whenever you download it, so play around with the artifacts, see what you like and see what you find best. This knife drain static charge here pretty much does the job for me, but I think that's going to be doing the build here. Thank you all so much for watching. My name is Bflattened. I'm signing on out of here. Take care all. Laters.